It helps a lot when you are recording a podcast to have the microphone plugged in, and we've got that going now. What's happening, sports fans? A happy Tuesday to you. Lots of good sports to talk about today. Lots of bad technology. I've been talking up these monitors that I got for the last 6 days, and they are both staring at me with dark, blank screens, which kind of makes me want to launch them out the window here in Iowa. I'm not going to do that because I think I figured out the problem, and it's the worst kind of way to figure out the problem. It's me. I think that was T Swift who said it. The problem is me. I got all excited when I got the monitor splitter that's a dock that also has a USB for a mouse. I plugged it in without reading the directions it states. And I read, please download the latest drivers at blank blank support page. Do not plug the J5 Create USB adapter into the computer until the driver has been installed. The problem is that they put that under directions. Who the hell needs those? Not me, allegedly. We're going to start with bets because we didn't talk about bets yesterday. And bets by Chase, a dazzling 3-1 performance in week 1 of bets. This week, 2-2, 0-2 in college football, 2-0 in pro football. And if you bet on every game this past week that at Bets by Chase recommended you bet on, you are up. Because one of the picks he hit on was a dog that I dissed on Friday. The Chicago Bears won a football game. Tell your friends. Bears fans are fired up. And they can feel fired up. They're allowed to. They got the job done at Soldier Field. 31-14, they take down the Dallas Cowboys. Just under 300 passing yards for Caleb Williams. What I did not know going into this game is that Matt Eberflus is the defensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys. Matt Eberflus, for those of you who may not know, was the head coach of the Chicago Bears for the past 3 seasons-ish, and generally hated by everyone. I shouldn't say hated. Generally disliked by everyone here in what we will call Chicago Bears territory. It has also been rumored a lot in the past 4, 6, 10 weeks that Matt Eberflus and his entire staff think Caleb Williams is a bum, and beyond that, uncoachable. And Caleb Williams wanted to make a statement, I am sure, and he pretty much did that. 31-14. Bets by Chase was all over it. Also, all over the Washington Commanders with Marcus Mariota in at quarterback for the injured Jaden Daniels. They take down the Las Vegas Raiders 41-24. He was right on the money with those. Fairness where we have to be fair. The 2 that missed, Oklahoma versus Auburn over, did not get there. I think that turned into a bit of a grudge match. They just never make it easy enough for me. I'm blaming ESPN. I really should be blaming myself for not having multiple monitors up to really take a look at things. I want the conference schedule of the Southeastern Conference. That's where Auburn plays. Auburn, Oklahoma. 24-17, Oklahoma gets a win. Good game. Did not quite get to our 47.5. Missed it by 5 points. And then Tulane. Let's talk about Tulane not doing their job. We thought Tulane was the team that had the chance to rep the conference this past week. Tulane taking on Ole Miss, having to make the trip to Ole Miss. Granted, not an easy game. No one thought it was going to be an easy game, but they did not put up much of a fight. As I click over here to the full American slate, final score 45-10. That is a pounding, and Tulane did not find the end zone until the fourth quarter. It was 23-3 heading into the fourth, and Ole Miss outscored Tulane 22-7. In that quarter. That was the bad for the American in a week when there was a lot of good for the American. After that hideous Rice-Charlotte football game that Rice won 28-17, Tulsa takes down Oklahoma State and ends the Mike Gundy era as of today. Mike Gundy, after I think 21 years as the head coach of the Oklahoma State program where he played and went to college, is out after Tulsa takes them down 19-12. You may remember that the week prior, Oklahoma State traveled to Oregon and lost 69-3. That is not good, but it's also Oregon, and that's an Oregon team that is currently ranked 6th in the country that a lot of people like, has won convincingly versus everybody they have played. I am a little surprised to see Oklahoma State not give Mike Gundy the season out of respect for all he has done there, but who knows? We are not in that room. It is tough to say. UAB gets trounced by Tennessee. That went about as expected. Temple hung around with Georgia Tech, but lost 45-24. The big one. Memphis takes down Arkansas. Home win, a huge one for Memphis. 32-31 is your final. Going to pull up a stat sheet for this. Memphis was down 28-17 going into the half. Able to find 6 points in the fourth quarter to win a thriller, and they are getting a ton of hype. Not quite what USF got when they beat the Gators, but a ton of hype still. And it does seem that people have forgotten about USF. And I wasn't quite ready for that. What we have talked about quite a bit on this podcast is that if you are a USF fan, after the Miami game, you might not have been feeling good. Doesn't matter. You're feeling good, I do think, after running over South Carolina State. Quickly to round out our American Athletic Conference scoreboard, BYU beat ECU 34-13. UTSA on the road at Colorado State wins 17-16. I think that is a pretty bad Colorado State team before I segue back to USF talk. Yeah, lost at Washington, edged out Northern Colorado, and then fell to UTSA by 1 point. A lot of USF fans still not thrilled with the AP polls. They want to see the Bulls ranked. They were not happy after the Miami game. Just thought one bad loss to Miami. Folks, it does not matter one bit. USF as well, something I mentioned last week that was not really uncovered until the weekend, especially after the Memphis win. There's been a lot of infographics showing the percentage chance each group of 5 team has to represent the group of 5 in the college football playoff. And I can't sit here and tell you exactly what that percentage is calculated with. I would certainly imagine it is some combination of strength of schedule, sabermetric analytics of what teams have done so far. Great. There is not a team in this conference USF should not either roll over or compete with. They're going to be in competitive games, I do believe, with North Texas, Memphis, and I believe that's it. I think they should handle everyone else. Now, this is USF football, and they might make a couple interesting, and that's okay. We still love them. I do feel like I'm missing a team, though, as I talk about the North Texas Mean Green, who I believe were inactive this past weekend. North Texas hosting South Alabama. Of course, the Bulls do have a bye. Is there another game of concern that I am forgetting? There are our Bulls. Charlotte should be traveling to North Texas. That's a tough game. October 10th, 7:30 p.m. North Texas has a small stadium, but a nice home field advantage. You travel to Memphis, that'll be tough. UTSA, will be tough at Navy. That's the one that I think will be tricky, especially if the Bulls do find a way to steer their way past North Texas, roll into Memphis with an undefeated conference record, come back home. I think they'll be able to handle UTSA on the road at Navy. Does not matter who you are. That's going to be a tricky game. Right now, ESPN matchup predictor gives the Bulls a slight advantage. Navy undefeated wins over UAB, Tulsa, VMI. I'm not sure who VMI is. They've got Rice coming up this week, Air Force the following week. The only real big games outside of conference on the rest of the schedule, they do play Notre Dame. And hey, there's some fortunate news for you. That is Notre Dame the week before Navy hosts South Florida. So you could have a very sore Navy team coming back after playing the Golden Domers on the road to play the Bulls. That'd be nice. We would like that. That is a long ways away. All the Bulls need to be worried about right now is Charlotte and reveling in the excitement of Rob Higgins and the press conference he had yesterday, which we'll listen to probably in full, or at least some highlights of it later in the week. Let's talk some hockey. Tampa Bay Lightning pick up a win last night, first game of the preseason. 2-1 your final score. I say with a 90% degree of certainty and pulling that one off the dome. I do not know if the Lightning are in action tonight. I don't believe they are. Let's take a look. No, Tampa Bay. Oh, they are. That game is going to... I don't believe it's gotten underway yet or just got underway. They're playing the Nashville Predators tonight. Won last night versus the Carolina Hurricanes. Watched a little bit of that game. Very difficult to glean a lot from the preseason. Thought the Lightning did look pretty engaged. Got outshot. Very good goaltending from Jonas Johansson. And that could become a bigger storyline due to what I believe to be the number one storyline out of Lightning camp right now. There is an Andrei Vasilevskiy problem. Eduardo Encina, whose content we have enjoyed and read several times on this show, had an article from 2 days ago detailing Vasilevskiy's absence. And we'll start with it, and then we'll transition to Twitter a little bit afterwards. When the Lightning opened training camp a few days ago, they appeared set to start the season with their roster looking a lot like a year ago. There weren't many questions to answer. What will the bottom six forward group look like, especially with third-line center Nick Paul out for roughly the first month of the season? Who could step into the defenseman rotation? What's the next steps, as we talked about last week? For Gage Gonsalves, Connor Geekie, Jack Finley, and Dylan Duke. Then goaltender Andrei Vasilevskiy went missing. Vasilevskiy missed a second straight day. It has now been 4 straight days of practice and was absent from the group's main scrimmage. Head coach John Cooper said Saturday Vasilevskiy's absence was due to, quote, player management, end quote. He said the goaltender was receiving treatment and wasn't expected to miss more than a week of action before returning to the ice. Vaz knows his body better than anybody, and we know what his conditioning is, and he just keeps himself in such elite shape, Cooper said. But like I said, we want to manage him for the year. Age eventually starts creeping up on everybody. Watch this one closely. Andrei Vasilevskiy is an absolute stud. He is also a big guy, and all goalies can run into health issues, especially bigger ones. 2 days is body maintenance. In my mind, 4 days is not body maintenance. This has started to get around a little bit. To touch on a theory I've had for a very long time, part of the reason that the Tampa Bay Lightning, and yes, the Florida Panthers, have been so successful is the environment that players are able to live in Florida, specifically Tampa St. Pete, and in wherever that stadium actually is. We'll call it Miami, Coral Gables, whatever it is. I work for a minor league hockey team, and in the Quad Cities, there are some avid fans who follow the players very closely. A lot of our players are Canadian and tell stories of guys they know, guys they have played with, and the insane levels of media coverage that those Canadian teams have to deal with, and those Canadian players who are Canadian on those teams, have to deal with. Take a look at the Toronto Maple Leafs. Take a look at the Edmonton Oilers. Listen to what a lot of those press conferences sound like. Think back to Connor McDavid in the locker room. Think of Austin Matthews, and you'll probably think of a time where they were not happy with a question. They were not happy with a reporter who was reporting, albeit to a extreme degree. That is not illegal. I will always go back to the reason that sports are a big deal is because we can watch them, listen to them, read about them, consume them. If we did not have those avenues and sports are a niche thing you could only go and watch, these guys wouldn't be making millions and millions and now billions over the course of a career of dollars. The Canadian media will put in the paper what a Edmonton Oiler ordered for dinner. It is to another level. And I think that bothers a lot of those players. I think when you get in the crunch of a playoff series and things will go your way and not your way, that little extra salt in the wound of some guy who has been watching your every move, guy or gal who has been watching your every move all season, asking a question that just gets under your skin a little bit, I think it makes a difference. And if you don't think it makes a difference, look up the last year that a Canadian team won a Stanley Cup. They have had far too good of teams to have gone that long without lifting a trophy. There is more to it. In Florida, and I would also cite Las Vegas, Dallas, non-traditional hockey markets where I am very proud to say that the Lightning have absolutely skyrocketed and become number 2 or 1B, depending on who you ask, to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are not subject to the same level of reporting tenacity as Canadian teams are, and in some degree teams in New York, Boston, but really that Canadian media with hockey is unlike anything. This would be a 5-alarm fire with John Cooper getting berated. And I do not fault any of the reporters for not necessarily pressing yet. John Cooper gave a timeline, and he said a week. A week is concerning, but you know what? When you're as good of a hockey player as Andrei Vasilevsky is, you can say, I want to take a week off, and you will get a week off. That is a luxury he has afforded himself by being a very good hockey player. If, after a week, Andrei Vasilevsky is not back and playing like his normal self, I would expect there to be a level of scrutiny not only to this situation, but for the answers that were given in discussing Andrei Vasilevsky's situation, as it may or may not be. I fired the word Vasilevsky into Twitter to see if anything significant had popped up at NHL_watcher. Chris Johnston, quoting, and this is a tweet from him, Chris Johnston on Insider Trading, talking Vasilevsky, quote, missed the scrimmage, missed 4 straight days now at practice, and there is not a whole lot of clarity as to what is going on. Continued. John Cooper did tell reporters that he is dealing with a player management issue, that he is receiving some treatment, nothing beyond that. Again, Andrei Vasilevsky is a great, not a good, he is a great goaltender. And if he wants a week off, he gets a week off. It is not incredibly comforting to see that guy missing 4 days at the very beginning of training camp. We will keep an eye on that. Click over to the show notes here. Remind myself of what else we have going on. Oh, yeah. Yesterday, after I ranted a little bit on the Tampa Bay Rays and the ownership group, I was lying in bed last night thinking about it. The Rays invested, I'll step back. The Sternberg ownership group bought the team and took control in 2006. I was critical yesterday of their investments in the stadium, the level of them between 2006 and 2013. It was really a 10-year window where there were rumblings about moving the team, but the real rumblings were about Tropicana Field not being great. And as I've said, they did not do enough, in my opinion, to make Tropicana Field great or act like they liked it. You can have, a beautiful car, but if it stays in the garage all summer, no one's going to know about it. No one's going to care about it. It was after those 10 years when nothing subtle worked that the threat of moving the team started. And that is not an unnatural progression when you are not getting the momentum that you hope to be getting as it pertains to perhaps city-funded renovations or perhaps moving the stadium elsewhere in the region. But again, the second that you have threatened to move a team to Montreal, or I remember hearing, not necessarily anything was in the paper, but now team moving to Nashville, going to find another spot for it. Nothing that is necessarily reliable. But again, that even is all fueled by ducking and dodging. Once you have done that, once you've threatened that move, which was done out of the region, you cannot expect another fan to show up. I think it speaks incredibly highly of Rays fans who have continued to attend games since 2018 or 2019, whenever that was, that those first threats to leave the region were made. That is closing the book unless you are able to land the plane. That plane was not landed. I did see a couple of quote tweets yesterday of a Matt Silverman quote saying that the team was not for sale. And yes, there you go. That was March 13th. Mark Tompkin tweeted Rays President Matt Silverman on 95.3 WDAE, quote, "The team is not for sale." Said it before and I'll say it again. Don't go too hard on Matt Silverman and Brian Alden. They were put in a pretty tough spot, I would imagine. Speculation 100% again from a Rays fan, casual at best, falling back in love to be the diehard fan I was 10 years ago. Probably put in a pretty precarious position. Like I said, the threat to move the team out of the region, that was the beginning of the end. Anything that was said after that, and by all accounts, the team was not far from a stadium deal. But to be that close and for it not to happen, it is a good thing. New ownership is coming. I have seen a lot of celebration of that. I am excited about it as well. I still do have some concern, and I want to make sure I direct this concern. I saw some people tweeting today saying, well, how does this new ownership group not have a plan in place for a new stadium? That's priority number one. I'm sure it is their priority number one. I'm sure they've had conversations with people who they'll be talking to again, getting a plan in place. You can only talk so much when you are not an owner of the team. And you can only put your money where your mouth is once you own the team. Still have a little bit of concern about the way some things have gone as this deal has approached its closing day. The 10% stake being held by the current ownership group, to me, one of two things. Cash not as flush as you would hope it would be for a new ownership group, or cash not as flush because they are putting their cash towards a new stadium project or planning to put it towards one. We will certainly hope it is that. As my Twitter feed scrolling up, I see a tweet. I feel like I'm close to saying this again. Get a dome. Folks, a dome stadium in Tampa is not only, in my opinion, the best option, it is the only option. You can make Tropicana Field a sweet barn. It'll take some money. It'll take some time. We got it. That's going to do it for us tonight. Tomorrow, we will take a listen to some quotes. Again, I didn't think there was a whole lot super newsworthy and notable, mostly just enjoyable. Hearing Rob Higgins talk about how excited he is should make all Bulls fans very excited. But a couple things he said I think worth chatting about. And we will do that tomorrow. For now, have a good night. You've been listening to the Tampa Bay podcast.